speaking metaphorically, it's like the real battle that so many people are so fixated on fighting is the gender and ethnic makeup of the workers in the olive fields. It seems it's very odd. Like, aren't we supposed to be cultivating prosperity instead of fighting this ideological battle? It's like it's taking the, you know what it is? It's taking the blessings profoundly for granted. Like, here is this olive field which you didn't plant, and rather than how can we make it bear more fruit, we need to make sure that the right proportion of workers are the ones tending it, and we'll forget about the fruit. We don't actually need those, and the olive
Yeah.
field, it kind of rots as a result because people are focusing on the wrong war.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, call it sin, call it Marxism, whatever you want. Like
Yes.
that's what it is. You have to have your storehouse full. You have to have the money to afford socialism, communism. You have to have built up the vineyards before you can, you know, leech off the built up wealth, to try and implement all these crazy ideologies that are going to eventually destroy us and have destroyed everyone else who's ever tried them. Um, and man, it's so clear and obvious, and yet so deceptive to so many people. And it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know the exact answer on how we stop it, but the best way I can do it is just by talking about it and telling the stories and making the connections.
Let's talk about, what some of the men and women listening can do to help the SEALs Beat Biden mission, to help you. Like, what sort of action can we be taking in our everyday lives, online and off, let's say.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first and foremost, the beginning of knowledge is fear of the Lord, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, get in your Bible, read it. I mean, make the connections. Don't just read the words in front of you. Think about them, meditate on them. Be like, how does this apply to me today? And then from there, I think the two things that everyone's been told growing up not to talk about are religion and politics. And I just encourage people talk about religion and politics every opportunity you get. Don't rant about it. Don't try to force things on people, but just talk about it because honestly, like all this comes down to common sense. And if you just think about it, if you do a little bit of reading, if you have a question, if you hear something I said, you don't agree with, just Google it for 30 minutes, and I bet you'll find some interesting stuff. And then lastly, my point being, gain knowledge, right? Just read the word, read information, not news sites. And then as you start to develop these through conversation and reading, um, I would just ask you reach out to your local congressman, reach out to your local state reps, find an issue that you're passionate about. A lot of people, Apologia, their thing is abortion, and that's a huge topic that we can fight on. For me and the guys in the military, we need to be calling and talking to our congressman every day, saying, "Look, there were 8,500 service members illegally discharged because they've refused to be experimented on. And there are 250,000 who are going to get kicked out over their faith. And Congress isn't doing anything to make that right or to prevent it from happening again. And I think that's what's most scary is, bygones might be bygones, but the future is still hasn't happened yet. And nothing's been done to um, stop these issues from coming up again. So we need congressional action, we need state level action, and we just need knowledgeable people so that next time something like this happens, it isn't 21 SEALs stepping up to fight it. It's millions of people across the nation. And the only way we get there is by people being knowledgeable and fearing God more than man.
Is anything softening at all, given all the people who quote unquote died suddenly, and the news coming out about the vaccine and DNA that's in there? Like, there is some real hard mainstream science now. I mean, not that mainstream is the authoritative, but the mainstream is acknowledging that the vaccines were dangerous or there were contamination, and you really can't hide the videos of people dropping dead. In fact, like, I talked to my health insurance agent a couple weeks ago because I lost my wallet. I found it, but I needed to reorder my cards. and he wanted to renew my plan. And he just mentioned offhand, casually, I didn't ask. He's like, yeah, ever since COVID, like so many cancers and different diseases are springing up. Like I didn't bring it up. He just said that the health insurance companies are really struggling with the increase of really dangerous illnesses that appears to quote unquote come out of nowhere. Is that information softening things at all within the military? Like, is that making anything easier, or are they still going hard in the paint over this?
No, they're still going as hard as they can.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I got 3 points I'm going to hit on real fast before I forget.
Do it.
I have some stats in my notes here. I'll read off. In the military, you were talking to your health insurance. This is stats gathered by one of the whistleblowers from IDCs, which are kind of the hospital, top of the line corpsmen in the Navy. Strokes over the past year or two, strokes have gone up in the military 43%.
Oh,
Ovarian dysfunction has gone up 34%. Disseminated intravascular coagulation, rare condition that leads to blood clots, has gone up 782%.
what?
Um, Abnormal findings in organs and tissues have gone up 165% over the last 2 years. Slips, trips, falls, 1,096%.
Oh
And
my
cancer
gosh.
and digestive organs, 26. And then there's a couple other, but testicular and breast cancer, 15%. So same thing with your health insurance findings. Like the military, so we have all these numbers. This is not just mainstream media. Like this is health numbers. You know, going up like crazy. All these issues going up, and yet Davis Yance just was fighting a case where they tried to take someone who had submitted a religious exemption, had fought the vaccine, didn't have to get it. They tried to station them in a billet overseas in a country that was requiring the COVID vaccine. And so now he's getting court martialed again to try and force him to get the COVID vaccine. When they could easily have picked one of the, 90 something percent of the military who has the COVID vaccine. They could have easily picked them and sent them to that billet. They specifically chose this unvaccinated person to try and continue to persecute them. So, yes, they're still going hard in the paint. Um, and then I forget my third topic I was going to bring up on that. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And so another action step you could do, Davis Yance, he has repurposed the nonprofit we use to fundraise for our own legal defense. It's called Stand with Warriors. And he's repurposing it to kind of be a proactive, not only legal defense group, but also kind of a training and community group as well. So they're going around getting with, right now it's mostly focused on the SEALs who, we already know him and have worked with him, but the goal is to spread out the organization to the entire military and federal agencies to give them, a kind of a membership basically, so that if they get persecuted, whether it's, they turn down someone asking for, to get paid to go abort their child, or whether they, someone turns down transgender surgery, or whether someone just gets a religious exemption denied in the future, he wants to be ready with the not only the funds but kind of the defense preset to keep Christians and common sense individuals, keep them free. And so I would ask people who are listening to this, go check out Stand with Warriors. And if you feel moved or called, donate to him, and at least follow him and keep track of what's going on, because he's the guy who's kind of on the forefront of all these legal issues in the military.
I interviewed him. I interviewed him on the podcast a year and a half ago.